planned that much ahead, and you have done it. So now he got me excited about it even more so. Anyways, one more quick thing before we move into the introduction of our first speaker today. I see that we have quite a few people in attendance today, and as we go on with it, feel free. If you have any questions, you can type it in the box, and then once we are done with the interview, we will address any questions that we have from any of you. And the only unofficial rule there is make sure that the questions are for our speaker today and moving forward as well, not for myself or Cameron, because we are already the stars most of the times within our office, but today the spotlight is not on us. All right, so let's move on, and I would like to present to you our first interviewer, and that will be Ms. Darla Ellett. She is the director of our TRIO programs here at Southeastern Oklahoma State University, and I say programs because that involves Student Support Services Teach, and McNair Scholars. Darla, how are we doing today? Are you
Doing
here with
good.
us?
Yes.
Great. Good to see you again. So let's start. Let's go back at a time, because we do have some people on here that know about your past and your career before the trio, and some of us don't. And even for those of us that do, it never hurts to visit and go back and kind of refresh the memory. So would you go ahead and tell us about your career and what have you done prior to joining the trio?
Certainly. So I will tell you that if you tell Cameron your story, he has a Rolodex and he'll file it away and recall it in a split second. So I have to start with this because he would call me out on it if I didn't. But I started school right out of right out of high school, and stopped out after my first year. So at the end of my freshman year, I stopped out. Life was happening, and boy, this sounds a lot like our trio students, that sometimes things interrupt our expected flow. But I came back to college and I started in the the Ronald E. McNair Post-Baccalaureate Achievement Program at East Central. I think that the program had only been active nationwide for 1 year, and East Central was one of the first to receive that. That's in Oklahoma, Ada, Oklahoma. But I graduated as an alumni from the McNair program, and immediately went into teaching field. So I taught math in the public school for 22 and a half years. And at the end of that tenure, throughout that process, I went back and got a couple of master's degrees. But at the end of that tenure, I felt like I wasn't done with education, as my heart was still in education. And I knew just from the experiences that I had as a McNair student, I wanted to provide that type of a service to other students. And being in rural Oklahoma, it's very clear that there's a lot of individuals who need that kind of a support. So I applied for and was able to get into the TRIO program, which was at the time it was called Project Teach, which was a student support services K-12 teacher preparation program. That's the official name. Well, I started that position in 2014 and have been here ever since. I was the coordinator, started out as the coordinator, and absolutely loved the things that I was doing. It was refreshing to be in a helpful developmental process or position for pre-service educators, having come out of teaching for 22 and a half years. I loved working with those pre-service teachers. There's a lot of obstacles that those students face that most students don't. And we'll go into that at a different time, or you can call me or something. I'll talk to you about it. But um, just that has been my experience. So here I am now, the director of the Collegiate TRIO programs at Southeastern. So that's in a nutshell my story.
Nice. Well, this is what that's a lot. I'm glad you share that, and what interests and intrigues me, and I'm sure that others might agree. Let's try to be a little more specific with this. Is there a time particularly, so between you starting to work as a teacher and then before you came to TRIO, time that you can pinpoint where you were so close to take a different path, and that you might think back from this perspective and say, man, if I did that, I would never be here. So what would be that time?
So oddly, this actually happened before I graduated high school. I had applied for a couple of different programs in mechanical engineering outside of the state of Oklahoma and had been accepted to a university in Boston, which I had been to, I had visited, and was I had the rural Oklahoma kid mentality, like I can't go anywhere.
Hmm.
And I almost, if I had gone on that path, I know I would not be here. And, I think that maybe in some different, um, I don't know, different universe, possibly, I would regret that decision, but I don't. I would not have met my husband had I gone to um, Boston University. I would not have I would not be in this position, which is this job I do love. So yeah, that was like a defining moment. I can clearly remember the thought processes that I had when I was like, you know what, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to do the thing here.
Hmm. It is fascinating how decisions we make in life at any point can just shape up everything, the destiny of so many people, not just us.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, you talked about how you started in McNair, and then you talked about how you worked in education and then transitioned to this job. What was the crossover between public school teaching and motivating you to look for the position in TRIO working in higher ed?
Well, really was working in higher education. And to be very honest, I didn't realize I was seeking out TRIO because Project Teach, it, the way it was branded, it doesn't scream TRIO, it doesn't scream or doesn't indicate student support services. And I was really interested in higher education and specifically with the teacher ed program here at Southeastern. And it wasn't until my interview, and I don't know if you all will remember Susan Dodson. She was my first TRIO director, and she was asking all of the good TRIO questions like what do you have, what's your experience with TRIO? And I was one of those kids. I graduated out of McNair, did not know that was a TRIO program. Shame on me. But now we brand everything TRIO. But didn't know. And she said, "Well, you graduated out of McNair. That's a TRIO program." And to be very honest, I'm pretty certain that my TRIO experience as an undergraduate student got me the job that I got when I landed in TRIO. So that was like full circle. It was a full circle moment.
So being a TRIO alumni helped your application and the way that you would work well in the job, I'm
Yes,
guessing.
certainly. Yes. And, a lot of times when students come and talk to us about building their resume, I tell them you need to add that trio experience on your resume. You need to add that because you don't know which person on your selection committee or the hiring staff will see that and be like, "Oh, they're trio. I know trio works," and that you just have a little better edge over someone else who may not have been in trio or did not include that in the resume.
So, how do you think that the relationship that you had with Susan Dodson, the director at the time that interviewed you, that told you that you were a TRIO alumni, how do you think forming that relationship and knowing her helped you integrate and know the work that we do?
Well, first thing that I realized was with Susan Dodson, she had this spirit of trio, and that's really the only way I can describe it is uh, advancing people and supporting them in their pursuit of whatever, you know, development that they're in. That was who she was. And as a as a trio professional, that was really what I kind of was already in that mentality because as an educator in a public school, that's what you're trying to do is, bring students up. And as the program coordinator, once I got that position, I tried to embrace that even more and emulate that attitude that Susan had. Like everybody's has the opportunity to grow, and that's what we're here to do is to help you open some doors that you may not even be aware exist. And I try to also do that for my staff, there's always room for advancement and growth and um, ability to improve.
Besides Susan, who have been the other people that worked in TRIO that were really guided you along the path?
So I have to, recently we attended the ODSA state conference and we had a guest panelist, Mary Meeks, who was one of my McNair cohorts. She was a year after me in the McNair program. And Pat Sutton was our director. And you talk about lighting a way. I just, she also was one of those individuals who realized barriers that existed and showed us possibilities. Like the first time I ever knew like a formal setting at a dinner was with Pat Sutton. And it was very casual. She casually helped us through that formal setting. And that's maybe a silly thing to remember, but that is truly a barrier if you're never given the exposure or the opportunity to learn something like that. And that is, that rings true to me today that I carry that with me pretty much every day. Those opportunities that she had, they were very, you know, let me help you. Yeah.
So Mary Meeks was a fellow student in your McNair cohort?
Yes, she returned to
Okay.
school like I did. She had stopped out. She stopped out of her educational pursuits and she she came to East Central about the same time that I returned, and she entered the McNair program the year after I did. So, yeah,
I only know her from the work that she's done with veterans, but she's a person I'd like to invite to be a part of this too, because she's very passionate about everything that she did with veterans. And it's very motivational hearing her talk
yeah,
about her desire to work with veterans and keep them basically provide them with resources so that they stay motivated and stay hopeful. That's what I get from her, and I've really always sensed that part of her.
yeah. Well, and she had mentioned that Pat Sutton was someone who really impacted her and her path as a trail professional. And so, she both Mary and I can attribute some of the our practices back to Pat Sutton.
I think it's great that you've seen so many people before you that were supportive and insightful to help you stay motivated in this field. That's what I think is so cool, and that you can name them and that keep good relationships with them.
Well, and something else that's really cool, I guess you could say, is all of the people that are on my staff have similar stories about, we call them our trio babies. And those students that just, they come to you almost broken, and the work that you do builds them up, and they grow, and those broken pieces become healed, and they may be scarred, but they are succeeding and have succeeded. And so really all of my staff have those same types of stories where they have had made an impact on their students.
I think I'm gonna go back earlier when you said you didn't even know that you were in TRIO when you graduated from McNair. And that's funny because even today we face that pretty much every semester, every year. We have students in our programs that make comments such as, "Oh, I didn't know that I was in TRIO. Oh, that's cool. Didn't know that there are so many opportunities that we have." And now, speaking of students, let's stay on and let's touch on that for a second here and focus on that. And speaking of seeing the effects of how TRIO has impacted students' lives, now for you personally, 2014, so for the past 12 years, and not to put you on a spot here because in 12 years, I'm sure that you've seen so many different stories that are yet also similar because we talk about those almost broken students that find their way and then they end up moving on in life. But what would be one that you would be willing to share? So now that we ask you, one story that stands out, doesn't have to be the most impactful one, or it could be, we don't know that, but something that you would say, yes, this is definitely something that I've experienced, and it it's given me even more motivation to continue doing what I'm doing thanks to this student and this story.
So recently, I had a student who was having a very difficult time getting their FAFSA completed. The student was going to qualify, had completed the FAFSA initially, but there was a hiccup with the application, and the process that he had to go through to get it cleared up. He had the runaround. We'll put it that way. He had the runaround both federally and on campus locally, and not that it was anyone's fault. It's just there was no clear direction on how to resolve the issue, and the federal thought it was the campus thought it was federal. Anyway, we reached out to our Senator Langford's office and asked him for some assistance. He reached out to someone on his staff, not him personally, but someone reached out to the federal student aid, connected us with someone who could help us resolve this. And I will tell you, this whole process took us probably 2 months to get it cleared up, and the student was prepared and ready to quit school because it was so difficult, and all of his federal funding was held up by this process. Got in touch with that federal aid representative, and we all joined on Zoom, the student, myself, one of my staff, and the federal student aid representative. And in that day, it got resolved. The student is here, re-enrolled for spring. That student's children are adult children, not all of them, but he has some adult children that are planning to attend school. I just see that little bit of effort that we took on our staff's side of things made a difference in that student's life, and not just his life, but his children's life. And so um, that's what I call casting a net. We're casting a net for not just one generation, we're going to do it for two generations.
Yeah, that's amazing. And now, can you just imagine? Can you all imagine? Had had it not been for his TRIO program and TRIO staff that help him out, and if the student wasn't part of the program that can help with that, what kind of turn would that take in the student's life? And I'm sure, unfortunately, it happens all the time when students they run into these obstacles and challenges. Not enough people or nobody really there that can help out, and then the first thing to do is, well, that's it, I quit. Let's do something else. Focus on something else in life. And
Yeah, and that's what he had said. He said, "This isn't worth it." He was ready to walk away. And we're like, please just give us a chance. Give us a chance. We're going to do what we can. And, calling our senator, that's in his right. He could have called the senator too, but he was willing to let us, advocate for him. And
that's all.
and in doing so, he now has stronger self-advocacy skills because he was like, oh, I'll call the senator the next time I need something like that.
Yeah, I'll
That's
just add to that. I'll add to that what you did there. That's amazing. That's awesome. And I'm just gonna uh, I'm going to share real quick something that I've mentioned before, but this is probably a perfect timing for that. In my previous career, a while back, I did have an opportunity to work with an individual who once said something that is really my philosophy even today, just doing what I'm doing today, what we all are doing in TRIO. And that is, or that was what he said that, and he said it more than once. Um, all these kids, because we did work with kids younger than college students, all these kids that we're working with and helping get better, there's a lot of them, and you never know which direction their lives are gonna go. But all it takes is one. If we can make a difference in one life every day, whether that being a thing that we say to them or something we do for them that is going to help, it doesn't matter. The job is done. Then I can go to bed happy and wake up the next day and go again. So that story reminds me of that, and I will keep bringing that up because it's definitely a big one. With that all being said, I'm going to turn it back over to Cameron, and he will take us to this second part of the interview that focuses on gratitude. And Cameron.
Well, I do have going off of the student stories part. I always tell students like sometimes it takes time to have things work out. And do you have like a student success story of someone that graduated that maybe really thought, okay, it's not working out exactly right now, but someone that you kept in touch with that they are like grateful that they did achieve the education they have because now it is working out for them, and it just took time. Like that return on investment like was a slow burn instead of a quick explosion. Do you have a story? What story do you have that fits that description?
So I do, and this is probably my longest standing student experience in the TRIO program. And I had a student the very first year that I started as a TRIO professional was a pre-service educator. So she was going through the process to get her education degree. And at the time, Oklahoma had 3 certification exams that every educator had to complete in order to get their standard certification. And the first one is very similar to the SAT or ACT. And the problem was that there was a writing component on this, and she was an English language learner. So she was fluent in English, but the translation between how she writes in Spanish and how she writes in English she was struggling with a bit, and she really struggled to pass the OGET. That's what the general education test was. Could not. She could not. And it got to the point in her degree program where she had to do something different because Southeastern's policy in the education program is you have to pass certain certification exams to advance to conferring your degree. And she couldn't pass that first one. She passed the second one, the subject area test, with flying colors. So we pivoted. I talked her through what do we do now? She was a Spanish education major. We switched her to a Spanish only major, which was, perfectly satisfactory. But she picked up an English minor. And I remember her coming and saying, actually, she has a double minor. She had an education minor, and I talked her into getting an English minor because she had all the credits she needed, except for I think one or two classes. And she said, I can't do that. I can't even, pass the OGET writing portion. I was like, yes, you can do it. And she did. And once she graduated, we were talking about how you get certified. Well, at one point, probably 5 years or 6 years after she graduated, Oklahoma eliminated that general education test. She was the first person I picked up the phone and called, and I said, listen, you have got to put in your application for your teacher certification because now they do not require the OGET. And she is currently a certified teacher in Oklahoma. And it would not have happened had we not had that continued relationship. And anyway, there's an example. She had been out of school for probably 4 years before she got her teacher certification.
I think that's a cool story of how you kept in touch with her, but also how she stuck it out because you stuck it out with her.
Yeah.
And you kind of were um you held onto the rope as well as she did to try to get through. And forming a career and seeing success from it or seeing the realization of what you're going towards, it sometimes does take time.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
Um,
and the imposter syndrome is so bad with the population of students who are in TRIO programs. It's terrible. And sometimes they just need to hear somebody say, you can do this. You're meant to be in this space. Hold your space, be true to you and who you're meant to be. So,
a lot of what you talked about has to do with believing in what you do and practicing what you believe through acts. And I've worked with you, and I have, and other good people, but I think I do see that you want to have your staff be supported and have them grow as well. Because I mean, I've been on the state board, I've been on the regional board, and that's all been because you have to get the support from your supervisor. So I do see that in action. You're putting your beliefs in what you say in action. Um, as part of the years that I did Trio Day at our state capitol, the first year was I had everybody stand up who was involved in that project, and I had students see all these people are here because they wanted this project to succeed. They wanted to bring you here. They wanted this to be good for you, and seeing can be believing. And
mhm.
then the second year, I said, all of your fingers on your hand are all attached to the same part of your hand of your body, but they all have a separate function. So not everyone does the same function, but they're all attached to a main system of your body to perform a common goal. And that's what that project represented to me too. And to me, it was all of those were service. It was service work. It was trio service work. So I do think we talk about things like gratitude. We talk about being thankful. We talk about sincerity and those kind of vague concepts. But I think what we do, and especially working with education, it's an act of gratitude. It's showing what we believe in doing it. And so how do you pay it forward in your own life in this position?
Well, knowing that Susan Dodson, one of the people who hired me, saw something in me that she believed would benefit the program is something that I try to use that same frame of mind when I work with my staff, when I work with students, is there's something in each person who walks through the door and that is very poignant in them being there in that moment and in that space and for that reason. I try to bring that with me anytime I have an opportunity to promote my staff. When I say promote, there's like opportunities for on campus for them to do different jobs, and they can all pretty much say, yeah, Darla looks out for things that might help us, grow in that path. Or I just feel like the students are going to benefit from me supporting my staff. And I work with students less now directly than I used to before I was the director. And I would hope that the care and the attention that I gave to my students when I did have an advising load, that my staff will carry that on, because it's not always the student who's sort of doing okay. They could probably float by without our help. We want to help those students, but we also have those students that they need us. And maybe they don't understand that they need us, but they need us. And those are the ones that there's no red flags flying. They don't even know they have red flags to fly. Those are the students that I hope at the end of my career I can go back and say, that's how I paid it forward. Was I helped those students that had no idea that they needed to throw up a red flag, that we helped them, that we prevented them from falling through the cracks.
So you talked about like being present with students and being present with staff. What are some routines that you do regularly as director that keep you in an attitude of giving back or an attitude of thankfulness or an attitude of gratitude?
Well, something that has been kind of interesting in the development of my current professional position is I came here from 22 and a half years of teaching. I'd never supervised adults. I'd never done that. And I think in developing a practice to where I give you guys or give staff a freedom to plan and develop, and education is one of those things that you just have to be prepared for change. And that's because of many factors, one of which are the students. The students change from almost right now, it is almost from one year to the next. Used to be there'd be like a generational difference. And technology has sped that up so quickly. So now we're looking for ways that engage the students. And I hope that what I'm doing is allowing my staff to connect with students in ways that are meaningful to those students and giving them the ability to also adjust and pivot when they need to, try to give them space also to make some mistakes. I think that's probably one of the most important lessons that we can emulate is we are not we are not perfect. We don't live in perfection. The things that we plan and prepare for don't always go in perfection, and perfection is very elusive, and the pursuit of perfection can be um, unfulfilling. And so just knowing that you're giving it your all and the best that you can is the most important thing. And that's what I hope that at least the impact that I have on my programs is that you have the freedom and to be comfortable enough to make mistakes that um, we can learn and grow from them.
I'd like to share a quote that I had to go back and find after Cameron asked you a question about timing.
Yeah.
Some patience and timing. It says, everything comes when it must come. A life cannot be rushed, cannot be worked on a schedule as so many people want it to be. We must accept what comes to us at a given time and not ask for more.
Who said that? I know that was me probably 5 minutes ago, but who
It,
actually said it?
yes, other than Cameron 5 minutes ago, there's just a quote in a book that I've been reading.
That I wrote.
Exactly. Cameron Colley, 2026.
Well, Darla, I thank you. You're our first guest, and each guest is just wonderful to talk to and learn from. And I'm grateful that President Sands was here, and past President Elizabeth Gordon was president, and we had some students attend. And
Maybe in the future we will have some students ask questions as we go. Today we can let it slide because everyone is, it's the first time. It's okay.
Well, does anybody have questions?
yeah, we'll open it up for questions.
And it doesn't have to be from students. Hi, Alexis.
And also doesn't
Hi.
have to be in a box anymore. You can say it.
I just wanted to say thank you for speaking today. It was really, really interesting to learn about your experience with McNair. I am a student who has just recently applied for the McNair program. And again, just wanted to extend gratitude to Cameron for helping me in student support services. And I look forward to future talks like this. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Alexis. Do you have a question for Darla, or do you have a question for anything about what was mentioned today?
Well, I'm not quite sure if it's suitable for the discussion, but like I said, just recently applied for the McNair program. As someone who's very, very new to the process, is there any advice you would give someone that has just learned and applied to the program about moving forward with McNair?
So with sort of the same process that you went through with the Student Support Services program, there is a little bit of time. We have certain things that we have to do in order to process your application, but you can't expect to hear from us no matter what. Once you've made an application, you will hear from us. So if you'll give us a little bit of time. The other thing that we're facing right now is we're kind of transitioning some staff positions in the McNair program. So we're trying to get that figured out. But you should hear from us no later than next week, the end of next week. Yeah.
Well,
I'm glad that you applied.
yes, thank you. And honestly, that's really quick. That's a really quick turnaround time. So I look forward to speaking with everyone at the McNair program, and just wanted to say thank you all again. This is awesome. And I know that you guys are going to do some great things with this talk series.
So the plan is that we're going to upload this to our YouTube channel, and then that's the reason why I asked President Sands to get involved with this. Like, he's the voice that can tell people this is what we're doing, and this is by interviewing people, we hear stories of success, and we see that we see different students that over time have succeeded, some in the current, some that have taken a couple of years to see the benefit of what we do. And we always say TRIO works. And that's a great thing to shout, when we're all in a group, how does it work? And how does it work for students? So what we're seeing today is how this is very relevant, what we do, and we're seeing success in the present moment and in a couple of years for students. So I just wanted to thank you, Darla, and thank you for everyone present today. And we're doing this for students, and we're doing it that to show that all of this really does work.
Likewise, thank you, Darla, and thank you everyone else for being here with us today.
Next week's guest will be a TRIO alumni that works on our campus. He's a police officer on our campus, and he's now attending a graduate program here. It's Officer Danny Cryer, who came back to school and graduated with his daughter, who is actually, they graduated together. They were both in student support services together. So next time will be Danny, and then the week after that will be President D'Angelo Sands. We'll be talking. So everybody tune in, and thank you guys very much for your time and thoughts and patience. Have a great day.
TRIO works.
Thank you.
TRIO works.